I jumped all the way up to 168. And that was a big jump. And I was eating so much.
I remember there were times where you were like, I have to eat again. Like, and I have to do this. I have to. You physically had to.
Yeah.
You really
did. So that I wasn't in a place to lose the muscle. Hey, welcome back to the Bent on Better podcast. You're joined by me, Matt April, your host, and a co-owner of Bent on Better, Lynn April. Hello. Hey, babe.
Hey.
How's it going?
It's going.
It's going?
Yeah.
What's been the best part of your day?
The sun came out.
Yes.
It was cloudy this morning.
But it turned out to be beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
I love when that happens.
And we'll go for a good walk when we go home.
Yes.
It'll be nice.
Pick our Joe up from the bus stop, take a family walk. Yeah.
Be beautiful.
I like it.
Yes.
Yes.
So today, we've got a topic. What's the topic for today? Do you remember?
I don't. We just talked about this. What's our topic?
Put you on the spot.
Wait, hold on. Wait. Oh, crap. No, I don't remember.
It's all right.
Do you remember?
Yeah. So today's topic we're going to be talking about is body composition and what changes when we have, no matter what your goal is, how we're going to change body composition, and more importantly, what it takes to change body composition. Yeah. So when we talk about composition, we're talking about weight loss. We're talking about gaining muscle, or what some people call toning and tightening and all these other fancy terms that the fitness industry has given us. Most important thing to discuss here before we even dive in, I think, is to remind people that fitness does not have a specific answer. There's no specific look for fitness. There's no specific expectation for fitness. Fitness, unfortunately, like we've talked about in the previous podcast, is that fitness has become this thing that people think it's only one answer. It's like if you look this way, you're a fitness person. If you don't, then you're not. And the wonderful thing about what we do, and you and me and Nick and Alysha and Molly, is that we practice what we preach, and it just so happens to be that we have body types that allow for us to look a certain way that gives us the fitness look, right? I mean, the fitness look.
But it's important to note we all look very different.
We all look very different.
Yes.
We are all very close in weight, which is actually really interesting.
It's kind of
and
crazy.
Every single one of us is different in height.
Yeah.
And gender.
Yeah.
And age. And background.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different dynamics that play a part in here. But today we're going to be talking about I think it's going to be an interesting one for a lot of people. It's talking about what it looks like when we're looking at weight gain and weight loss, and maybe using some different things we've talked about recently. So we'll start off with, I think this is a great way to kind of segue in, is talk about you as a woman who didn't prioritize strength training and who didn't prioritize lifting weights, and especially the capacity of what you do now on a regular basis and have been for the past 3 years consistently. Tell me about your experience with weightlifting and fitness.
So I spent a long time spinning. We've talked about this before, which is basically just steady state cardio over and over, just burning calories. It's not building any muscle. It's not targeting any specific body part, right? So once I stopped doing spinning and learned about weightlifting, I was able to see changes in my body that were favorable for me, that made me happy. I didn't necessarily have any physique goals. It was just kind of like, well, let's see what weightlifting does for me. And it's been how long now? It's 4 years that I've been consistently lifting.
Yeah.
And man, I just love the way I look is very low on the things that I like about weightlifting. Mm-hmm. The way I feel and the things that it does for me in other places is what I just love so much about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're coming from a fitness background, an athletic background. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about on the previous podcasts, and we've also discussed this in our personal life, how you did not prioritize lifting or strength training for years, even though you were an athlete, and you know now how important it is for athletes. Yeah. But even then, you were saying how even in the weight room, you only lifted the 10-pound weights because, one, you didn't want to get too big and bulky that you thought it would slow you down. I'm the same thing. It's the same thing for me. I ran track in high school. I did lots of sports. I did football. I did basketball. I wrestled. Did it all. And then I finally found my passion, which was I love sprinting. I loved it because it was a thing that I could depend on myself for. And I used to be very, very much like me. Like it was just this is my story. I wasn't very team oriented. I was very individual oriented. And so I did track. And even though it's a team sport in a sense, I was individual. So I could excel and no one would hold me back or stop me from doing what I set my mind to do and the goals and the things I wanted to accomplish. But I did not. I knew the importance of lifting, right? I learned it from the other sports, but I would purposefully, and I remember having conversations in high school, purposefully do lighter weights and higher reps because I did not want to gain muscle and get too bulky and get slower. And it wasn't until I think my senior year, I set records. Local for our high school. I set records locally for sprints for the 100 meter, the 200 meter. And it wasn't until senior year of high school where I was at the county races. And I forget what it was called, the exact title for it. At the time, it was like SCCL, I think. And then I went on to, like that was Southern Chester County League. And then I went on to do like the whole county. And then I went on to state. And then what I found was in that higher level, there were athletes, funny enough, who were coming from Westchester, who were coming from like these like better school districts. Like I was from Oxford. So backstory for me, I grew up in Oxford. I went to Oxford for high school. And they've come a long way, but when I was there, the programs weren't as built out as they are here in this area in Westchester. And it's funding, it's a lot of other things that come into play there. But I did not have a coach to say, you will not get big and bulky. You're going to get stronger and faster if you lift heavier weights and do training that's specific for you. So I went to these competitions, and I remember seeing other kids, other young, like 16, 17, 18-year-olds who were like huge, like especially compared to me, like just jacked men. They look like men. I looked like a little boy compared to these men who were all the same age, if not maybe younger than me. And I actually had to step back and I was like, oh my God, like what are they drinking and eating in that area? And like, why am I not at that level? And I held my own, but I did not compete at that level. They were at a higher level because what I found now, and now seeing it and being in this area now for like a decade, we've seen what this community, what this Westchester area does is they feed into their schools. And there are programs like what we do here that prioritize strength because these athletes can come here. They do have the ability, the resources to do this, but they're able to prioritize it and then develop. And so for the athletes who have the level up mentally from their parents or from themselves, knowing how important strength training is, they can then develop athletically and grow in that way, which other school districts and other places and other mindsets, they're not interesting. So bring it back to you with even a collegiate athlete. You did not focus your time and effort in the weight room on lifting heavy weights to progress yourself. It was just like going through the routine.
Yeah. And I actually don't know if I've ever told you this. The summer before my sophomore year of college, so I played collegiate field hockey. You know this. I played collegiate field hockey. And the summer before my sophomore year, so it's summer 2005, for whatever reason, I got, my local gym, it wasn't the YMCA, but it was kind of like that. They had like a college student membership, and I joined for 3 months, and all I did was the circuit machines. Mm-hmm. So I just went through the circuit 3 times a week, which we've talked about already. We've talked about only needing certain amount of days a week. I would do that. And that was what I did that summer. I would run because I needed to keep up my conditioning for my field hockey season. And then I would do 3 days of lifting. And these weights were not super heavy, but they were enough that when I went back for preseason, the first thing my coach said to me was, you've been lifting weights. But at 19 years old, I was like, she must mean that I'm bulky, right? Like, but that was the best season that I ever had. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to keep up with that weightlifting, even though it was just circuit machines. I was just kind of getting my feet wet with weightlifting. I wish that I had maybe done that and then moved into, like, gone back to college and had like a strength and conditioning coach that could have taken me to to better strength so that I could have maintained that continued. But that was that original thought. I was like, oh my gosh, she thinks I look bulky.
Yeah. Let's break it down. Let's break that down. So what we talk to people, especially new members, about is in your first month, in starting a new program, especially with resistance-based strength training, you're going to see big improvements. And usually they're pretty quick, because what happens, I'm gonna really water this down here, like super watered down version of this, okay? So all the sticklers out there, if you're watching on YouTube and you're ready to jump on me for this, jump on me, but like comment below and like just leave it in the comment section. But I'm gonna water this down. So when we're doing strength training, and for a lot of people who come to us, most people are coming to us without any sort of strength training or resistance-based background. So this is a brand new world. So what happens is when we're here, we're making all these little tiny micro tears to your muscles. We're making these little tiny micro tears that are good. But we're creating damage. We are literally damaging our muscle tissue when we're doing resistance-based strength training. And thank goodness we have amazing coaches who prioritize your safety and your health over just pushing the weights and pushing you to try to finish. So we're looking at everything from a very scientific approach, but also very safe and controlled approach. But we're making little tiny damages to our muscles. And what happens is, and when we talk about prioritizing sleep, is in our sleep is when our immune system then goes and takes on the nutrients that we have to repair those muscles. That's what our immune system does. Our immune system during the day is helping us fight infection, helping to keep us alert, keep us alive, make sure that we're not sick at every turn and everything that comes in our way. But it's when we sleep, that's when our immune system can let its guard down in a way and then prioritize recovery. And so what our immune system does is it uses the water in our blood. So our water, so as long as you have good blood flow with proper hydration, the water and the blood's going to carry all of your immune system all throughout your body and repair all those cells. But it's not just repairing it with magic. It's preparing it with the food that we're eating. Mm-hmm. And this is why we tell people live by the 80-20 rule. The 80% of the time, eat really healthy foods, whole, natural, things that come from the earth foods. And then 20% of the time, eat whatever floats your boat, whatever makes your soul happy. And that's like we say to our kids, let's eat some food for our muscles, and then let's eat food that makes our bellies happy. Mm-hmm. So, and that's a very generalized belly happy, right?
Yeah.
Like we know the cap and limit there sometimes. Yeah. And sometimes they have to discover it. But back to this analogy. While we're sleeping, our immune system is going in and making these little repairs, all these repairs, and it's taking all the nutrients that we've given our body and then just kind of like putting plaster on a hole in the wall. It's putting plaster on it. And then what happens with that plaster is it stiffens up and it hardens and it becomes part of the wall. Mm-hmm. And then over time, all those little tiny micro tears keep getting repaired and it comes back more and more resilient. So it's the same thing if you like chipped away at like the paint of the wall and then you put some plaster over it and then paint it again. And you chip away and put plaster and paint it again. Same idea is happening with our bodies. The only difference is it's coming back and it's getting thicker. It's getting stronger. It's just building out. So with new people in a program, most of the time when you start a new program, strength focused, you gain weight. And that weight that you gain is actually mostly water and the nutrients that go to your muscles. So you're not necessarily building muscles like tacking on like the Hulk, but you are, however, building more resilient skeletal muscle. And that is the beautiful part about it. But with your coach, with having lifted for a summer for a short amount of time, you went from no lifting and just cardio to then lifting. So same thing here with our members is you get started on a new program, you are going to have what we sometimes call them are like noob gains. Mm-hmm. Like you are a newbie to the entire experience. So you will have these new gains that will allow for you to be more resilient, that will allow for you to feel better and stronger and feel more confident with your body. But it's the month after month, and it's the continued consistency that really plays a part in what resistance training can do for you. But I think we're going to keep going with our topic here is how much effort it actually takes.
Yeah. So
much effort. So when I sit down with a lot of our moms or grandmothers or grandparents, when they come in and talk to me and I tell them about our program and what we do, they get a little hesitant. They get a little weary because I mentioned lifting weights and heavy weights. And we see our members out here lifting weights, lifting heavy weights. What people neglect and forget is that to actually see that progress of that rebuilding and repairing and the longevity of what can come from it is the amount of time and energy and food it requires to be at that level, right? So
yeah.
Talk about the strongman recently, the strongman competition that we watched.
Just the other day we were here at a 5:30 a.m. class, and Nick happened to mention like, "Oh, did anyone see the strongman competition or whatever?" And this dude, he from the ground, he cleaned and then pressed what did I tell you? It was like a 245-pound dumbbell, which looked ridiculous. It's huge. And so we started, as a group, we started talking about like, you know, what it takes to do that. It is that person's full-time job. Full-time job is to just work on just that. Mm-hmm. So that person is not only dedicating their entire life to that, they are eating an inordinate, that word is hard to say, an inordinate.
A lot of food. A whole lot of food.
And then we started talking about swimmers and how, you know, like Michael Phelps, he eats
let's just be clear.
Professional athletes. It is their job to look that way and to perform that way. Mm-hmm. So they have to live their life that way. And there's no way that I can promise you that women, you're not going to get bulky from especially what we do here, especially. And this is coming from someone who has tried to make her muscles look bigger, right? Like I've tried real hard. And I know I'm not the only one who has tried to see definition and like get bigger muscles. And man, it is a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And you experienced that when you trained for your powerlifting competition.
That's right. Yeah. So, I mean, back when we first had Joey, I decided that I wanted to work toward a goal because I'd fallen off. I was trying to build our business, trying to build Bent on Better. And something had to go, right? There's always, I've talked about this before with you and I've talked about this with our members, but there's always a price to be paid in everything we do in life. There's no such thing as a free lunch. There's no such thing. Mm-hmm. So when we're talking about our life and how it kind of relates to us, when there was a moment in time where I had to choose between doing Bent on Better as a hobby that was a part-time income and taking it as a full-time actual business, something had to give. So I gave up. At that time I was playing flag football in an adult league. I was consistently going to the gym 5 to 6 days a week. I was sleeping about 10 hours a day, and I was meal prepping everything, counting every macro, because I thought at that time I wanted to get into bodybuilding. I wanted to get into physique competing. I wanted to be something else in fitness. But I had realized that was not the priority. My priority was building my business to help change the lives of other people who I come into contact with fitness, and show other men and women that you don't need to be a specific way, and you can make fitness a beautiful thing. And weight loss doesn't have to be this primary goal. It can be healthy weight management and get this whole new unique look on life and fitness and how it works in there. But I wanted to have a new goal. So I went with powerlifting, and I took all of the bodybuilding experiences I had and transitioned it into powerlifting. And so for powerlifting, for people who are listening, powerlifting is a sport. It is a sport that is between deadlift, bench press, and squat. And you have judges that watch you do these lifts, these 3 lifts, and each one has specific parameters that you need to meet for each one. So I hired a coach, a friend of mine, John Gaglione, up in New York, and he wrote me a program. We did some video calls. I recorded myself doing these movements, and he gave me tips. But in this process, not only did I learn, but I also realized the amount of work it takes to lift that much weight that frequently, and with the goal of lifting the whole point of powerlifting, the sport of powerlifting, is how much weight can you move from start to finish within the criteria that they set. So it's just how much weight can you lift? So that's why we see a lot of powerlifters who are very large individuals, because you have to eat so much. And when you eat a lot of food, you have a lot of energy. When you have a lot of energy, you can expend a lot of energy. So for me, I had to go from being about 155, I jumped all the way up to 168. And that was a big jump. And I was eating so much.
I remember there were times where you were like, like, and I have to do this. I have to. You physically had to.
Yeah.
You really
did. So
that
I wasn't in a place to lose the muscle. Mm-hmm. And so let's flip the script now and let's talk about the most recent goal that I worked toward. It was to run those 2 half marathons. Yeah. So just last year, I ran 2 half marathons a month apart from a time. But I've never been a runner, other than, like I said earlier before in another podcast, I was a sprinter. I ran sprints. I loved the 100 meter because it was a short, quick distance. The 200 meter to me was like wow, that's super long. Don't even talk to me about 400 meters, one lap around the track. That was like grueling distance for me. But I realized, like, in order for me to have a better relationship with fitness and have a better understanding and to be more empathetic with our members who are coming in here who have been avid runners for years, I needed to put myself through it. So I did. And I spent a whole year running. And I did not neglect my lifting. I still would lift 3 days a week, and you can attest to it. Nick can too. And I wouldn't just lift like weights here and there. I was lifting my body weight or more with all these weights. I was making sure I was lifting heavy to challenge, but nowhere near what I was doing with powerlifting. But in that time, in that year's time, I lost 3 pounds. And guess what those 3 pounds were? They were skeletal muscle. I lost 3 pounds of muscle. My body fat stayed practically the same. And I'll have to make sure that in this podcast, this is a little note for me and for the team who goes through and helps me edit this stuff. Let's make sure we get some screenshots of my in-bodies and put them on this podcast because I think it will really help solidify. And maybe we'll get some pictures of me before and after so you can kind of see what I'm talking about, like powerlifting versus running Matt's body. But I spent all this time running, and running is just, like we said earlier, it's your checking account. You're just burning calories. There's no additional benefit. Yes, we're improving our cardiovascular system. Yes, we're improving our heart health and our lungs and our blood pressure. We're like lots of internal benefits, right? And stuff. But for me, there was no like long-term benefit other than just to get to this goal. So I ran and I would run, and I was eating a lot. I was still eating a lot. Nowhere near what I was eating with powerlifting.
No, you were still eating a lot.
But I was still eating a lot. I was taking food with me on my runs.
Yep.
But I was,
forgot about that.
And I would stop here mid-run, and I would get like my protein from upstairs, and like I would in the middle of the run, I was doing things that I knew that were important, and yet still, my body decided that I needed to change. I needed to have more calories, so it lost
ate your muscle.
It ate my muscle.
Yeah.
It literally ate it up, and that's like a really watered down way of saying it, but it really did. It did. I lost 3 pounds of muscle in 1 year because it took that long. And it took much longer to build that, by the way, but it took that long to lose it. So coming full circle here, it takes, you have to have a specific plan in place when you're working towards something that's keeping you on track. So for me, I'm goal oriented, but I know that goals aren't destinations. Goals are just a part of that journey. And so with running the most recent one, now my goal right now for this year and on is how can I just get back to where I was before I ran? And like, I don't like thinking that way and like have to get back to where I was. But in my mind, I see it as an opportunity for me to see if I am able to develop that resilience again in my muscles and develop that skeletal muscle that I had, knowing that's where I kind of sat comfortably before the running. We were in a place where I was just kind of maintaining my fitness. I was maintaining my health. I wasn't doing anything obnoxious for competitions or anything else. So I don't like to use that term like get back to, but to put it in perspective, it was just, I want to regain what I lost in that way for the muscle and keep my body fat where it is. And that's how I feel like I'll be sustainable and in a place where then I can look into the future and prioritize maybe a new goal, maybe a new thing, maybe a different focus in my fitness to learn and to grow. But that's where I am with all of that.
Yeah. And I think you found a really good balance, at least right now, especially with the warmer weather coming, because I know you like to use running as your me time. And I know that you stop if you're feeling like you're having your knee pain or whatever. But I think it's funny that we as fitness professionals, you can like pick a runner out of a crowd, right? Like you can be like, well, that person, all they do is run. Because there's not a whole lot of muscle mass on them. They're usually like on the thinner side. And I think you've found this really cool balance of like maintaining your strength and your weightlifting while also continuing to run at a healthy
outlet
volume.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
So like, you know, it is, and we talk about these things like we always have this like common theme, like, you know, the consistency, the balance, and sustainability. Like, is it sustainable to just keep pounding pavement and just doing all of that for your body? Like, what's the benefit? Exactly. On your joints, on everything. Can we find a balance between like, I really, really, really like running. And we have a member who came to us as just a runner and she wanted to get better at running, and she dialed back her running, put in weightlifting. And I think she would tell you that she became a better runner.
Yeah.
And so you have to find that balance.
Yeah.
You really do.
In every way, especially when it talks about fitness. And so to wrap this one up, I think it's important to highlight there is no limit to what you're capable of. But remember that your habits outside of your fitness journey or routines have to reflect that of your goal. So if you are someone who wants to build more muscle and who wants to build a more of a lean, sustainable, but like healthy body type, we need to prioritize your nutrition. You need to prioritize your sleep, your water, your recovery, your stretching, your mobility, your stability, and your strength, all those areas. And even talking about the strongman competition and CrossFit competitors, when we see these people usually on TV or like on the internet, they have not gotten there overnight. It was years in the making of that. And it's not just years of like 1 or 2 or 3 days or 4 days a week. It is 5, 6, 7 days a week because that is their full-time job. The people who are doing strongmen, they're competing to win the grand prize, which is going to be their salary. The people who do CrossFit on the competitive level and the high level are competing to win the grand prizes of first, second, third place, which are financial. They are resources. They are money that will be their income. And then, of course, there are things like we talk about sponsorships and endorsements and things where they also get their income. But let's just speak clearly to like anyone who's listening right now and more. If you align your goals with your life and vice versa, if you align your life with your goals, you will be more successful because you'll develop a plan that works for you in that stage of life. And that is the biggest takeaway. Before we had kids, I was able to lift 6 days a week and be at the gym for 1.5 to 2 hours because I knew I could sleep for 10 hours. And that's not an understatement. I was sleeping for 10 hours. Yeah. Remember when I would go to bed at 7:30
it was late out
in the summertime?
Yeah. You were like a toddler.
Go to bed at 7:30 sometimes because I knew I had to wake up at 4:45 to be able to get to the gym in time to make sure I had to get at least 9 hours at that time or whatever it was. But prioritizing sleep, prioritizing recovery, prioritizing water, prioritizing protein intake, fiber with vegetables and fruits, carbohydrates and fats, those things are all so important. But it's all coming back to, again, aligning it with your goals for life and your current lifestyle. And of course, you don't have to live a certain way or a particular way. The only thing that stops you from achieving the kind of progress you want to see and the kind of success you want to have is the space between your ears.
It's this much.
That much.
This much.
That's all it is. So if you're hanging out with us, thanks for hanging out with us. This is one that we really enjoyed doing. But make sure you leave us a review on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. Make sure you give it a 5-star review. Give us a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube. If you're checking it out on any other social media platform, of course, comment below. Let us know what you're going through. What are your goals? What have you learned from the past? What have you learned from your experiences? Oh, I want to know. I really want to know. I want someone to comment and tell me how they've had to adjust their eating habits or their sleep habits or their water and what kind of benefits they've had after doing that when it comes to working in their fitness goals. Yeah, that's what I would love to hear. Yes. Cool. So let us know. And for now, we will sign off and say we'll see you again next time.
See ya.
Bye.